Nicholson. I run a centre for adults here with additional learning needs based here in Swansea called Can Do Hub, and I'm also a Makaton tutor. I'm a sibling carer to an amazing young lady with Down syndrome, and I'm also a member of this church as well. So I thought I've been invited to talk to you today about how we can incorporate some strategies and techniques and some things to have a think about.
Can we close the door? Is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
I like when your ears also. Can't escape now, can you?
Honestly, I will not be offended. I'm done. Okay. So yes, I'm here today to talk to you about some things to have a think about, some things that we could possibly incorporate. Some of them you may already be incorporating, which would be amazing. Some you might think, why is she even talking about that? But there's always a reason behind everything. So let's get started. Right, so today our plan of action, we're going to have a look at some barriers to participation, and we're going to have a look at some sensory overloads and strategies for overwhelming situations. And then we're going to have a look at communication and encouraging positive behaviour as well. Rich has asked me to talk about that in particular and to touch upon it because I know that they've had some calls about how we can include lots of people and how we can maybe encourage and foster a positive behaviour environment, and not only for the individuals with additional needs but also for the congregation as well, so we can make it totally inclusive. Okay. If I talk too fast, just tell me slow down. I get really passionate about this, so I'm really sorry in advance. Okay, so we're going to have a quick look at barriers to participating in church life. And the question I really want us to have a think about is, are we reactive as in our churches, or are we proactive? Okay, are we reactive to the situations and to the needs that come to us? Or are we going out and saying, this is what we're providing, you are welcome here? Because I'm telling you now, there are going to be lots of situations that families have been welcome in, and they've attended not just church in community, in inclusive settings, in disability-specific settings, and at the end of that setting, they've been told, I don't think we're the right setting for you. I think you should try somewhere else. Okay, and it's not just here, it's not just in church life, it's in society in general. Okay, so are we reactive or are we proactive? Okay, so let's have a quick look at some barriers. So they can be broken down into three different settings. So there's the physical barriers, okay? So adaptations and changes needed to support participation aren't available or they haven't been implemented. Okay, so where is the worship held? Is it upstairs? Is there no lift? Have they been told that there's no lift? Is there a safe sensory space? Is there a safe space? Is it inclusive worship? Are there different ways that we can really reach out? So is there widgets? Okay. Are there inclusive passages? Are there loops? Hearing loops for people? Is there a buddy that can welcome somebody? Okay, so things like this as well. So physical locations, is there a car park? Okay, then we'll have a look at logistical. So adaptations have been made. So yeah, we've got lift upstairs. We've got a car park, but nobody knows about them. We still got a barrier. Yeah, so logistical. So they've been implemented, they haven't been implemented effectively. Okay, so this could be exactly training the staff, spreading the word, advertising. Okay, the location could prove inaccessible. Are there accessible lifts for a wheelchair user? Is there parking? Are there aids to help? So are there visual aids, as I showed earlier? Are there guides and volunteers to help and just welcome somebody? Because sometimes when people walk into church, it's a really scary and a really lonely place. Am I going to be accepted? Am I going to be sitting here on my own? I've come here because I'm lonely and I need help. And sometimes sometimes we're in a room and we could still be the loneliest person in the room, even though we're full of a room full of people. So things like this, how can we make it? Are we delivered accessible sermon deliveries as well? And then we have psychological as well, and this is a huge barrier. And for me, this is the barrier that is the biggest one that we need to overcome. Okay? Attitudes and opinions and perceptions preventing Okay, so how did that make you feel?
Scary, disappointed, troubled.
Yeah? Anybody else?
Overwhelmed,
Overwhelmed, yeah. What did it make you want to do?
run away.
Run away. Anybody encountered runners in your sessions? Yeah? Okay, this is what's going on. The noise and the overwhelm gets so much that we want to shut it out. And it can be in any way. It can be shutting down, it could be lashing out, it could be running out the door. Because it's getting out of that situation. It's that fight or flight mode. And the reason why I put this in today is because quite a lot of individuals with additional needs experience this. Not only that, quite a lot of people that have had any mental health, PTSD, overwhelm, anxiety. I'm a brain injury survivor, and I experience sensory overload all the time. Okay, and there's just ways that we can find strategies to help us and to help our individuals in our congregation by maybe thinking about actually what is there that we can reduce or eliminate to make it a safe space. Can you think of anything that's overwhelming for someone visiting your place of worship? Think of white lights, strip lights that have the sound, chatting, smells, seats close together, nowhere to run, nowhere to know where they can go to. All of these things are really overwhelming. So I thought I'd put you in their shoes, our shoes for a little bit, so that you can see exactly, actually, this is what's happening when there's an overwhelm moment, there's a meltdown moment. Lots of people even refer to it as a meltdown. It's not, it's a sensory overload, but our senses are overloaded, and the only way to get out is to get out of that situation. So if you've got runners, that's what's going on. If you've got somebody who's lashing out, that's what's going on. There's no bad behaviour, it's communication. And we have to figure out, like a sensory detective really, what's going on for us to figure out what we can change to make it accessible for people. So sensory processing refers to how we use the information received by all of our senses within our body and from our environments. And all the information is integrated to give us an understanding of who we are, where we are, what's happening, what's going on. And when our senses are integrated correctly, we're able to respond appropriately. But there's times when that doesn't happen. And that's when we have these overload situations. And this is really important because research shows that 20% of school-age population have sensory processing difficulties. And that impacts on their ability to do everyday tasks. So not necessarily all of them will have additional learning needs. Okay, but 20% of them will have sensory processing difficulties. So when the senses are overloaded, that's when you're getting the runners, that's when you're getting the lashing out, because it's fight or flight mode. That's been triggered. They're either going to flight or they're going to turn around and fight. It's triggered, and it's triggered in the sympathetic nervous system, and this can be displayed in a huge range of different ways. Shutting down, some people just won't move. Okay? We have a fire alarm alarm is a trigger for somebody in our community, and it's really hard because obviously when there's a fire alarm, we need to get them out of the building. But there's a shutdown, so they can be shutting down, quick breathing, anxiety attacks, overloads, and most people refer to it as a meltdown, but it's an overload. Our system's overloaded, crying, shouting, harming oneself or others, and consequently, because of that, learning and participation is impossible. Okay, so Angie Voss is an amazing lady who's done a lot of research on sensory overloads, and she says 15 minutes of vestibular input, it can either have a 6 to 8 hour positive or negative effect. So something that could be something so tiny will have repercussions going further on. So when in the tenses of somebody having an overload, it's really important to identify the issue. Is it sensory or is it a behavioural reason? And are the sensory issues causing the behaviour? And there's a really simple strategy to have a look at and see actually how can I help my student or my member. So think sense. Stop and assess the situation or the behaviour, because behaviour always happens for a reason. Okay, there's behaviour is communication. Okay, there's always a reason behind it. There's no bad behaviour. An environment change, E. Okay, so what can I change or what can I add, what can I omit to actually make this situation better? N, note the person's response to the change. And then S, sensory strategies and tools. Pop some sensory strategies in place, and we're going to have a look at them now. And then E, embrace the positive and learn from the experience. And I'm going to tell you now, there's going to be times where you put all this in place and it isn't going to work. And you're going to think that you failed. Okay? But just keep going. Embrace what actually worked there. Actually, they didn't run out of the room. They still lashed out, but they didn't run out of the room, so I've improved that. They've changed their response. Okay, right, what can I do next time? Okay, so learn from it. Don't give up. Never give up. So, some strategies that we're going to try today. Okay, so vestibular input can be calming or altering depending on the speed, length of time and the intensity of movement. That's really, really great. Now, we're going to have a look at some grounding techniques. And I've put, when we talk about grounding techniques and deep breathing and things like this, there's a huge conflict between, actually this all stems from a yoga perspective, and are we comfortable talking about that? Because yoga, spirituality is totally different from what we are thinking, but there's other ways of doing it as well. Okay, so grounding techniques. And think of it as like this is the day that the Lord has made, and let us rejoice and be glad in it. Okay, so notice 5 things that you can see, 5 things that you can smell, 5 things that you can hear, 5 things that you can feel, 5 things that you can taste. Okay, and change it. So as you notice them, name the things that you can sense, but thank God for them. Okay, and acknowledge that each detail is something that He has given us. Okay, so instead of just actually putting it as a right, okay. Do I feel comfortable about doing this? Turn it so that it's a Christian point of view. Yeah? Grounding techniques, so important. So that's a great one. Straight away, think of 5 things that you can see around. What 5 things are we thankful for God? Thankful to God about. Okay, so 5 things we can see, 5 things we can hear, 5 things we can smell, 5 things we can feel, and 5 things we can taste. And moving on from that, deep breathing exercises is one of the quickest and most effective ways to avoid fight or flight mode, okay? Because it triggers the sympathetic nervous system, and using deep breathing in our sessions when we can sense a sensory overload will really benefit our students or our participants, okay? But how do we feel comfortable doing it in a Christian setting when we know that sometimes there's that conflict there? So we can do shoulder shrugs. So deep breath in and out. Okay. We can do the 10 count block out, which is a really, really effective one for quite a lot of people. We focus on something. We can focus on an image, We can focus on just a text. We can focus just on a piece of wall and blocking out the senses, closing the eyes and count, either closing the eyes or focusing on a spot and counting to 10 each time with a deep breath as well. There's a breath ball app, which is great, which you can put on an iPad or a phone, and it's just a balloon that expands and comes back down. It's really great for directing focus and really calming down. And there's also, and I never remember the name for this, so if you do, please shout it out. Do you know those balls that's like, they expand and they come down and they're made like,
Fancy balls.
Once you throw them up in the air,
yeah, and you just push them out and they come out and they're made of like,
Like Meccano.
yeah, like Meccano.
Yeah.
And I never remember the name of it. And each time I go, is that ball?
You know.
You know the ball. That's a great one because it's visual as well and it's hands-on. Okay, so hands-on things. And these are things, we can have in a corner. Okay, simply focus on our breath. Now this one's a really great one because it's a two-word prayer in your mind. So you can either put your hands on your heart, you can put your hands in a prayer position, and with each breath, we're thanking God. So we can repeat this two-word prayer in our minds and breathe in one word and out the other. So for example, trust God, God's grace, Jesus' love, and you could also read a Bible verse and find a two-word phrase in that. So for example, take a Bible verse like trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, and then have the words breathe and lean that you can use. So actually, when we're talking about deep breathing, we don't have to put it in that we're not comfortable with this because it's come from this thing, because we can use it and have a Christian focus on it. And things like this are so useful and really quick as well to bring somebody out of an overload. It's one of the best ways to do it. Then we also have vestibular inputs. So exercise bands. I'm not going to throw that. Okay. Have a go. We've got some bands that we can use. So we can pull them. So they're really useful. The loops can go around our chair. Okay? Because when we're in overload, hitting and kicking is one of the quickest things to do, because normally when somebody's in an overload situation, somebody is trying to suppress that overload. Stop it and calm it down. Okay? By having a loop, an exercise loop on the back of your chair, okay? We've got that, so you're not kicking anybody, but they've got that feedback there. They're craving that feedback. Okay? So loops, they can use the loops, they can push it and pull it. Exercise bands, brilliant, because they can wrap it and pull it. Okay, it's that feedback that is needed. Anybody been given a hug by a younger child or maybe an older child and they duck their head in and they're pushing, they're requiring that sensory feedback. Okay, so by using an exercise band, an exercise loop, have them available. Have a sensory friendly corner. Yeah, where you've got tools like this, but you can really pull, yeah? Because sitting still, we all know the bottle of pop analogy, yeah? Yeah, how long can we all sit still for and listen? Not very long. I can't sit very still for very long. Okay? And then how can we sit still and listen when we've got all of the extra noises going on and all of the extra distractions and some smells, and they're all different smells, and oh, somebody's had a cup of tea, or somebody's got new aftershave and I can smell that. How are we going to focus on what we want to focus on when we've got all of these distractions? Yeah, and then we'd be told, shh, sit still, shh, sit still. Okay, right, something's going to go, right? And the bottle of pop top is going to come off and we've got it. Exactly, kaboom. Okay, so sensory friendly corner. Okay, if somebody needs to go there, that's cool, that's fine. Have some loops, have some squidgy balls, some fidget toys. squidgies, stars. This is a really good one. Anything with glitter, anything that's coming down, anything that we can calm the system with. Things like this, really, really helpful. Fidget toys, fidget spinners, I have got a whole box of them, but in my centre, they've gone missing. Somebody's hidden them. They put them away, and I know exactly who it was. One of our team members, we call our students our team members, was very helpful and said that they were going to put them away. So I will find them next week because they will tell me where they are, but I just could not find them. They put them very safe, that's all I can say. But fidget spinners, everything like this are really, really useful. And just have a sensory corner. Exercise balls, amazing. Alright, amazing.
Do you know any churches with a sensory corner?
I actually know there's one in the Uplands, Lifeways Church. They have a sensory room. They have a sensory room with activities like this. They also have soft play, like soft wedges and things like that as well. So yeah, really good. But just a little corner, and just maybe on the table some strategies, some loops and stuff that they can just pick up. Maybe some year defenders have available in case it gets too loud. Some people don't like the pressure, some may. Just have them available, ready, just in case somebody needs them. It's much easier to listen if we're fiddling or something. Yeah? So we're doing something, our hands are busy. So things like this, exercise balls are brilliant because we can bounce on them, we can sit on them, we've got that feedback that we require. Not like a chair, chair's hard and it moves, it just stays there. And we'll get uncomfortable, muscles will get achy, and then we get bored and we want to move. Whereas if you have an exercise ball, we can still listen, but we can bounce. We've got that feedback that we need. If we get overloaded, we can go on our tummies, or we can roll that way. And that actually gives feedback as well. So things like this are really, really helpful. So have a think of little things that we can add in that actually just have a little corner, a little basket, and say, this is our sensory, and make it available. Yeah,
What, in
it's
the same
helpful.
room though?
Yeah, at the back of the hall. You can have it at the back of the hall in a corner. You can have a safe space. So
So
for
even
example,
though there's triggers within the room, there's still
a quiet space. So
a
for
quieter
example,
space
upstairs, we can have the church. We've got the church as you could saw earlier. And we've got the little alcoves. Pop it there.
Yeah. We've
Is
just
this
got one
tea-
big hall, that's what I was thinking. So we
So yeah, a
we
little
have
corner.
we have a little teepee and the defenders at the moment.
That.
To add to that would be brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I'm just wondering
Yeah.
if the room's a bit of a trigger and there's so many senses in there, would it have to be elsewhere?
It doesn't have to be elsewhere. It can be in a corner at the back,
Yeah.
further away from the noise.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes we don't have the resources to have another room. We'd love to. How amazing would that be? Some of us don't have that, but we can do everything that we can. But we love TP. Yeah, perfect. Things like that. Yeah, the corner and back. What they've got, and that's not pushing them to the back and pushing them away. It's about providing a safe space actually that they feel comfortable with. And then over time, they'll recognise the triggers and they'll take themselves off there themselves instead of actually being directed there. That's what we want. We want them to be able to self-regulate. And it's self-regulation that's happening there. Okay. So, have an opportunity to actually move in the surface. The piece is great. Yeah? The piece is amazing because everybody gets to move. The piece can also be scary. Okay? It can also be a worrying time because there's lots of people moving around and there's people moving towards me and they're going to come and give me peace be with you and they're going to put their hands up and I don't want to touch them. They don't have to. They don't have to. Because they're involved in it. Could we introduce silent threat? Peace be with you. So anybody who doesn't want to sign, we can still include that. Peace be with you. Can we have a hand gesture? Can we just do this? Can we sign? Peace be with you. They're still included. But they don't have that fear of, oh my gosh, somebody's coming towards me, they're going to touch me. Can't do this. Run. Yeah? Things like that. Adding in signs to songs and actions for those to incorporate movement. So the song, Jump Up and Down, do you know the one? Yes.
Well, we
our church, and obviously since COVID, before COVID, we used to go around and shake hands, but since COVID, we don't do that anymore. But instead, we stay in our seats, we turn to each other, but we like wave.
Perfect, exactly. Perfect. So you've still got that connection, but without the scariness of having to touch people. Yeah, I love it. Brilliant. So everybody know the song Jump Up and Down? I'm so glad you're singing it as well, because you do not want to hear my singing. But yeah, jump up and down, spin right around, praise your name forever. Could you add some signs to that? Could you actually get them to do the actions? Because that's vestibular input. We're jumping. That's what's needed sometimes. We're spinning. That's what's needed sometimes. Yeah, church needs to be worship for everybody, not just how some people worship. We need to be inclusive of everybody. Can we add in movement? I mean, I'm not saying like a full-on dance routine or anything. I'm just saying, no, just some moves. We can sign it. We can enjoy, add some signing, because we've got movement there as well. And if we're overstimulated, limit options to 2 or 3 activities. Change activities so that we've got a transition and they know that that's happening. Lower the volume, give a sensory break, or offer some sensory toys. Do you need a break for a second? Do you want to go into the sensory section? Yeah, just give choice. There's lots of ways that we can incorporate worship without having them removed from the setting. Because when they're removed, the parents think, I failed. And the young person thinks, I failed. There's no failure in church. Okay, so communication. How do we communicate? How we communicate is really important. Body language, 55% of the overall message. Tone of voice is 38% of the overall message. But the words that we think would be the main message is only 7%. Okay, so how do we communicate with everybody in church? How do we communicate with anybody in general? Okay, having to think about this. This will help us to have a look and encourage positive behaviour, because behaviour is communication. Any behaviour is communication. And it's really useful to be reminded of the 5 main reasons. Like why people can behave in a certain way. And it's to receive the desired items or desired action, to gain attention, to avoid tasks or a particular situation, to escape, or to experience self-stimulation, so they're having a sensory overload. So how can we encourage this? So we can provide choice, we can ask the member what they would like, we could provide positive reinforcement, and a really important one is to validate emotions. Okay, quite often somebody will make a beeline for you for a reason. And if they want to come and speak to you, then it's really important that you validate their emotions instead of saying, oh, right, okay, I tell you what, tell something while I do this. Because they've come to you because they trust you. Okay, so validating emotions is really, really important. No, oh, don't be silly, it's fine. I understand that you're feeling scared. You know what, sometimes I feel scared too. Let's have a look at what we can do to help us not feel scared. Okay, and boundaries, they need to be fair and consistent for everybody, not just for the one person with additional need. Listen first and explain later. So this is a huge one, because there'll be a reason why, and if they choose to share it with you, even if it's displaying unwanted behaviour, there's a reason behind it. So listen to that first before you speak. Not, you shouldn't be doing this because da-da-da-da-da. No, why did you do that? Can you explain to me why? Right, okay. Now, yeah, that sounds very, very fun, but that could be very dangerous because, okay, so listen first. Listen to what they're going to say first and then speak. Okay, explain later, because if they don't get their point of view across first, it's not going to go in. It's not going in. Okay, keep calm. Avoid situations where unwanted behaviours are likely to occur, or redirect and replace a challenge behaviour with a compatible, appropriate behaviour. So, for example, if there were some children and they were going into a hall which was empty, and we were going to start Sunday school, and they see space, what are they going to do? Run. Yeah? We're going to run, because it's a big space, it's going to be fun, and we're going to run. So, instead of getting to run, freeze! Okay, run. Freeze! Okay, run. Add in some extra things. Okay, reach up to help, reach. Okay, run. Okay, now walk. Walk really slowly, like you are going for a race, but somebody's pulling you back. Okay, add in these elements, because then you are changing that unwanted behaviour. Instead of shouting at them, and then there's going to be extra, because you know they're going to have the mood, and then it's going to escalate from there again. Redirect it. It's turned into a game. Okay, brilliant. Come and sit down. Fab. No problem. Yeah, so redirect and replace the challenging behaviour. When considering disruptive behaviour, it's really often the case that some people are finding it too hard. The task is too hard, it's too difficult. So we need to find the step or the exercise that's causing the issue. Okay, and then through positive reinforcement and encouragement, coach that adaptation through. Okay, and praise the success and achievement of it. And then also, some people with ALN often behave inappropriately due to communication difficulties. Okay, so if an individual can't express themselves, they often resort to behaviours that result in their needs being met. Yeah, so the best way to avoid this is making sure that we have effective forms of communication to teach communication skills. And that doesn't necessarily, as we saw earlier, doesn't necessarily mean words. So how can we communicate? Yes? Oh, thank you. Final one. How can we communicate? So let's make our language accessible and clear. Give short instructions, avoid anecdotes, and make it personable. Okay, boil it down to the message or the meaning. Incorporate action. Use a variety of learning styles. And then if and then statements as well. Add in some visuals. Picture exchange communication systems. Widgets. I've got these that everyone can have a look at, and I'm going to make them available. I've already got them as a PDF that I can send and you can pass them on. Visual timetables. Okay? Sometimes the anxiety of not knowing what's coming next is a worrying thing. We're alleviating this, and they also can have ones that they might find that it's too loud. They might want to draw, they might want a sensory toy. And then they've got the steps of goodbye and home. We're coming in, we're having a welcome. We're having a sermon, or we've got a Bible reading, we've got the notices, we're doing a piece. All these things like this that we can cut out, we can laminate, and we can put them on Velcro and make a visual timetable. We can move them around. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be stepping stone. Not knowing is the worry. Having things like this helps. Easy read versions. Coloured signs. So for questions, I'm sure everyone can relate. If somebody asks a question in church and you don't want to be answered, what do we do? Coloured paddles? Yes, no? Multiple choice? A, B, C? 1, 2, 3. Hands up with this, hands up with this, hands up with this. No pressure. Everyone's doing it. I'm going to just show you some of these things as well. These are really cool. These are widgets. We can do, widget is a great system where you can just type and the symbols come out, which is great. So we can, oh, thank you. So we can give a Bible passage, and it can, the visuals are really helpful for people that are struggling with literacy. Okay, we can put Bible verses in, and the main message can be shown then where we've got the symbols there. So that's called widget. Easy read versions, really, really helpful and accessible. Visual timers. coloured paper or pastels instead of just white. Black and white is really harsh. Have overlays, and I'm not saying spend fortunes on coloured overlays so that people can find it accessible. Go to the stationery section, coloured Polly Pockets. That's what you need. Don't need to spend a fortune on other ones. Green Polly Pocket, red Polly Pocket, put it over the text, and for some people, or sign in order to understand or communicate. So by adding these in, we can really, really become accessible. All that's left to say is thanks for joining me. And I say, Will, then stop. I know I haven't stopped talking. I'm trying to get as much information as possible. And please don't hesitate to get in touch with me if you need to. I'm going to make these available, and I'm sure they'll find a way. They're worship symbols that you can print out, and then there's Bible passage, and we can, or maybe you could add it in that you're signing. You could sign this so that everyone's learning together as well and become inclusive. So that's what we want, really, isn't it? It's for everyone to be accepted, and as much as we say it, there's always things that we could all do to make it more inclusive.
So, do we need to be reactive or proactive?
I would say proactive, constantly. Proactive, so that everyone knows what's available.
Is there training available for?
Is there training?
Yeah.
I don't believe. Is there training?
Can certainly look into it, yes.
Absolutely. There's also, I know Becky George is looking at doing. So she's a so she's a Makaton tutor like me, and she is. I want to say that she's a church leader or in one of the English churches, and she's actually putting through a church Makaton course, I think, at the moment for accreditation, so that would be something amazing to do. But Becky George on YouTube is really helpful, and I know Rachel was talking about maybe having a Makaton session for people that we can add in some worship and stuff. Because I did say, shall I just do Makaton? And she was like, no, I need you to cover these bases. I was like, fine, no problem. But we can add in things, so if there's anything I can help with, please come and see me. I'm just going to be around all day. And yes, something
I've just done a widget training as well, and I think they're looking to do more.
You will see, yeah, widget training is brilliant,
Yeah.
and it's just software that you can purchase, and you log in and you type wherever you want, and it comes out in symbol form, which is so great. But you can also use, so if you're doing Makaton, you can do Makaton symbols, which are black and white, and you can draw them. So, I mean, I'm glad I haven't got a whiteboard here because you do not want to see my drawings. But there's lots of things that you can do to become accessible. There's an easy read sites software as well that you can find pictures so that it adds in. But easy read, widget, PECs where you're exchanging systems to get pictures, exchanging pictures so that you can see the different requirements that you need. All of this stuff we can do, you know, and we can become accessible then, and there's no barrier then. There's no barrier that we can't push down. The only barrier that's the hardest is changing people's attitudes, and that's not about changing people's attitudes as to us putting the sessions on. It's congregations. Everyone belongs in church. Everyone is welcome in church. So we have to find ways where we can welcome and change the mindset of others as well at the same time. And that's the challenge. And right now I don't have an answer for that. I wish I did. So thank you so much. And I know Sean's looking at me like, you've got to get back to this. Hurry up.